Hello everybody, it's Ben Cope from Grappling Insider. Today I'm joined by an ADCC West Coast Trials champion for the 77 kilogram division, one of the best black belt submission only competitors in the world, William Tackett. Mr. Tackett, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I'll get right into it, man. The reason we're talking today is, as we speak, we are 9 days away, I think, from ADCC World Championships. Just straight up, how are you feeling so close to the big tournament?
I'm feeling great. It's been a good camp. It was I actually cut it a little bit shorter of a camp this time, just dealing with some injuries from training previously leading up to the camp, and plus I had some injuries coming out of the last trials, so I was dealing with that, but I was still training and just trying to work around them. So I just pushed the hard training, which would be considered the camp, a little bit shorter than what I normally do, and I actually feel really good. So I don't feel as beat up and kind of fatigued as I normally would going into a longer camp. So I've been feeling great, and I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm. And I saw you got to train with Felipe Pena a little bit. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that was a super cool, epic experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually where I got hurt. Before the camp, I got hurt training out there. Nothing that he did or anyone else did. It was just there's a big weight difference between us. So it was just an accidental, he kind of fell on me and I just hurt my rib. So it was nothing too big, but enough to set me out of training just for a little bit so I could make sure I was going into the ADCC camp completely healthy. But it was a great experience out there. Everyone at that academy is super nice, very technical, and just so welcoming. It was a cool experience.
Now, is his academy big, or compared to your home academy, or is it kind of the same size?
We might actually have more mat space than he does. He has more amenities. He has a nice weight section with even some cardio equipment, and it's actually 2 stories. So the mats are downstairs, almost I wouldn't consider it a basement, but it's a 2-story type building. And the upstairs is nice because they have a really big lobby, and they have some really big locker room shower combos. It's really nice. It's a good facility.
Nice. And talk to me a little bit about you're not from one of those mega gyms. You're not Autos, right? It's not Unity. And I know you're kind of a guy who's proud to be from kind of a smaller home gym. Tell me about the benefits of training at a relatively smaller gym for a world-class grappler.
Yeah, so I love training at the gym I'm at. I've built really good relationships and community at our gym. If anyone has had the ability to be able to come train at Fight Factory, I think that you would definitely agree that the environment is pretty special. We just have a really cool vibe. There's really hard training. We're all really serious, but having a great time, and all laughs and seriousness at the same time. It's just a really good environment. So I think that's one thing that's a really good benefit, is the fact that I just really love the environment and I like being there. Mikey Musumeci actually talks about this a lot. I believe he talked about it on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he thinks that for him, everything has to be enjoyable for it to be sustainable for him. So whether it be diet or training or anything, if he's not having fun, it's hard for him to keep going. And I'm a little bit not as much like that. I'm pretty disciplined to get the job done regardless, but it definitely helps having an environment that I really enjoy and people that I enjoy being around, and just being friendly, and it's just been a family environment. On top of that, I get a lot of attention from the coaches and the students. I'm never having to sit out because, the higher, more experienced, more accomplished guys are taking the mat space or anything. So I get a lot of attention. I'm able to really focus on my own skills, and I don't know. I just really love it. I've trained at other gyms before. I've been to the big affiliations. I've been to the HQ Checkmat in California. I've been to a lot of big gyms, and I like it. There's coolness to it too. The fact that you get a lot of really high level training partners. But I love training at the gym I'm at. I think that it's best experienced, and not as much said in words, but I love it. It's great training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, personally, I've been planning to make a trip to Austin and go to all the major ones. You're definitely on the list. I guess talk to me. Mikey also talked about this a little bit. not training with exclusively professional grapplers? Like, are you training with hobbyists as well? And if so, what do you get out of that?
Yeah, so if I train with hobbyists, I try to train with guys that are like tough. I like training with tough training partners. And this is like, I guess there's two different types of training for me. There's like training in camp and then training out of camp.
Mhm.
Training out of camp, I'll roll with whoever. Like I'll roll with like the 120-pound, like, new blue belt or kid that's coming in to train just because I like to roll with people and I love jujitsu. And I love like, there's like that interaction with rolling with somebody where like in a way you understand a little bit more about them when you're done. And it's something that's not really experienced in other like areas. So training for me with everybody is a blast, and I love that. Like it helps me. Like it also, I think, helps our environment at the gym too. Like I don't think there's a white belt that's been there for longer than a few weeks that hasn't rolled with like some of the professors at our gym, which in a lot of gyms is unheard of. I've been to a lot of gyms where people are like, man, I still haven't rolled, or like my coach looks like a beast. I'm like, you never rolled with them? They're like, no, I did specific with him one time. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So like at our gym, we try to roll with everybody. In camp, I take it a lot more serious with who I'm with. Like that's probably one of the only times I'll tell people no if they ask me to roll. And it's
Mhm.
not because I'm like, no, I don't want to roll with you. It's like, hey man, sorry, I got this guy. I'm trying to like, push a little bit harder in this training session. We'll get around, some other time. But for the most part, like I'll train with hobbyists, but they have to be like tough hobbyists. Like we have some blue belts and purple belts that are like athletes, like guys that are, 20, 23, 24, and they're like jacked and strong and athletic and have good cardio. That
Mhm.
like they might not be as like technical, but I can really get in some great training sessions with them because I'm able to like push really hard. And even if it's me subbing them like 8 to 10 times in a row, I'm getting like that good like,
Mhm.
um, physical on physical, like basically clash that I normally don't get whenever I train with just hobbyists. So if it's going to be a hobbyist, it's got to be someone that's like brings something more to the table. But we also have some hobbyists at the gym that are like black belts that are really tough. And even though they're hobbyists, they're sometimes better than even some of our competitors. So I like to keep my training pretty wide open. But for the most part, I just try to get tough rounds and whatever that looks like.
That's awesome, man. Sounds like you guys have a good atmosphere down there at Brazilian Fight Factory.
Yeah, it's fun. Like I said, I think it's best experience. So definitely, if you can, make it on down and get some training in. I think you'd love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
I don't know how much I'd love getting tapped 8 to 10 times in a round by you, but otherwise it sounds fun.
Yeah, well, if especially if it's my first time rolling with somebody, I'm definitely not gonna like try to get the maximum amount of taps in a roll, or it's a little bit different. Normally, when I'm training with someone for the first few times, I try to like match their energy. And
Mhm.
normally if someone like even it comes up to me and like, hey, you want to roll hard, or like, I'm not gonna have much for you today. I'm like, it's okay. I'll just match your energy. And we just kind of like
Mhm.
that intensity. And if they kind of bump it up, then I'll bump it up.
Yeah.
I think and I've been there where I roll with like a really high level guy that's just bringing some intensity that I just don't really want to do. It's hard to say no to the high level dude. Like you don't want to say no to the black belt that ask you to train, and then you roll with him and then he's just like mopping the floor with you and it's not what you want. If it's like if you want the tough training, it's great, but sometimes you just don't have it in you. So I get how that is. So I try to always train however my training partner wants to train, unless it's like you know they know that they're my comp rounds.
Right. No, man. I'd assume you're a nice guy. Um, so compared to other ADCC competitors, a lot of guys like choose to compete a ton, like after trials and through this summer. You're not one of those guys. Can you talk to me about kind of that decision, benefits, possible negatives to not competing after trials?
Yeah, so I think there's like a lot of things that go into it. I think there's anyone that competes or even watches some of the ADCC can, I think, recognize that the rules is kind of what sets ADCC aside from a lot of other tournaments.
Mhm.
And there's not a lot of tournaments that do like legit enforced ADCC rules. Like they might say they do ADCC rules, but they have like some random, local black belt reffing and he doesn't know the rules. So the rule separates the different events like crazy. ADCC is just so much different when it comes to like scoring, like just the whole thing, strategy, all of it. So like if I'm not able to get like some matches that I think are beneficial for me moving forward in the ADCC like rule set, then I didn't really see the value of it. Like I got a lot of matches at trials. I got 7 matches at trials. across 2 days. So I had a lot of matches. I got a lot of experience against high level guys under that rule set. And like I said, I came out of it with a little bit of some injuries. I had banged my knee up a little bit. I'm dealing with some neck stuff. So, just basic whenever you get 7 matches, you never walk out of that completely clean. But, the injuries definitely played a factor, but mostly because like I couldn't find an opponent that I felt like would have been beneficial for me getting a match with before ADCC in the rule set that I wanted to. So I had reached out to some of the promotions asking if I could get matches with like XX or X guys. And they just either weren't available or like the competition wasn't happening in the right time. So it just ended up working out. I don't think there's really a downside to not competing within the front time frame. It's not like a whole like a year in between the 2 competitions. It was really just like a camp, and then I like deloaded after the camp and rested, and then like started building back up, and then I was right back into another camp. So it actually worked out pretty nicely. I think that over competing can be a problem because you can develop injuries, and in a way, like if you're ready, then there's no need for you to compete more. And like, I don't know, it seems a little bit weird, but like showing everyone else what you have, if you already feel ready and you have a good recipe going and you did well, then just, save for the big thing. Like, for example, if I went out there and I lost trials again, because I've lost trials a few times, then I probably would have been like, okay, what I do wrong, like for example, at the East Coast trials when I lost in the finals, I really messed up, like coming up from half guard with underhooks and not like winning hip position against Cade Rotolo. And that like really cost me the match in a lot of ways. And if in that instance, I was like, okay, I'm like putting a lot of effort into this, and the next tournament, like I'm going to see results in this area. And I did well at trials with like battling out that area of my game and not making those same mistakes. So then I was like, okay, check off the list. I don't need to like correct anything else, right? But if I would have lost again at West Coast trials, maybe like, I don't know, by either sub or like got taken down a bunch, or then I'd be like, okay, I need to compete more and test these areas a little bit more and get more ready, get more feedback going into the worlds. But I felt really good. There's obviously a lot of areas that I have cleaned up and fixed, but I did good. I did well enough to win, and I had some good strategy and it paid off. So I just know that I just needed to clean up some small things, and I was good to go for worlds.
Yeah, I'd say you did good, man. I mean, I think that 77 kilogram division at that trials might be like the toughest ever, people are saying. I mean, I think that's a fair kind of judgment. So you're a guy that's been competing at a high level since a super young age. Are competition nerves still kind of a thing you have to deal with? Because I think a lot of guys want to compete throughout this summer because to kind of get the like, all right, I need to just practice winning. I will say, for example, I interviewed Ash Williams, the 66 kilogram competitor, a couple weeks ago. And he said he did, I think, 41 jiu-jitsu matches this summer, like any tournament he could possibly enter. I guess kind of talk to me, like, do you see competing as like, I'm practicing my mindset, or is that kind of something that you need to address still?
I think so. On the whole nerve side of things, when I was a kid, I used to get super nervous in competitions, not in like a way that really affected my performance, but I just get really nervous. And I think that the fact that I thought everyone else wasn't getting nervous, and me getting nervous, like almost made me more nervous, like, oh, I should be nervous, it would make me more nervous. So it wasn't like a bad thing because I still like would win matches and stuff. But when I was on Hibero Jiu-Jitsu at the time, so back when Salo and Shanji had their own organization together, I was doing a seminar where I was learning from Salo Hibero, and he was doing Q&A at the end. And that was something I struggled with. So I asked him, I said, how do you not get nervous? Like, I've watched your matches since I was young, and you always seem like you're, cool as a cucumber and you never get nervous. And he's like, no, bro. He goes, if you're not nervous, you're not human. He goes, I get plenty nervous. Like, I've always gotten nervous. He said, and that's something to think about, is like everyone else gets nervous too. And he said, that should kind of help you get through that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So like thinking someone like that I considered to be, a legend and idol, and, someone I looked up to a lot back then, especially because we were on the same team. It was like really relieving to hear that he got nervous as well, and everyone else does too. So that helped me a lot going forward and competing. Now I just know that the other guy, I mean, he's probably more nervous than I am. And at least telling yourself that kind of helps too. Another thing that I'll use, like a little mindset trick I'll use when going into competition is like knowing that and this doesn't work if you have like a bad camp. So if I like, had a crap camp where I just, got injured a bunch or didn't train hard enough or something went wrong. I don't know what it was, maybe bad weight cut or something. And I go out there and I'm like, oh, I don't know, the camp was bad. Like then like you can't use this, right? But most of the time I try to go into a tournament feeling really ready. And if I'm not feeling ready, then like, I didn't do my job. And I try to take my job pretty seriously. So I always try to stay in like, really good shape and really healthy going into tournaments. So I know whenever I walk out there, I'm like telling myself, you did everything you could leading up to here. There's nothing else you could have done more. You trained your hardest. You couldn't have done anything better. You're ready to go. Everything else is in God's hands. Other than that, you can't deal with it. Like you can't even worry about it because at that point, like you've done everything you can and you've trained as hard as you can. I thought you're the best version of yourself in that point in time. So there's nothing to be nervous about. If anything, you should be excited because you've had a good camp. So I tell myself that when I'm like pacing up and down and getting ready before a match. You've trained harder than the guy across from you. He's probably more nervous than you have. You've been through a better camp. You feel better. You're healthy. You're confident. And telling myself that can really help kind of shut those nerves out. But in a way, like I think the nerves are healthy because if you go out there just, no nerves at all and just kind of, oh yeah, I'm just here, then it's because I think nerves are like tied to expectation. Like you don't know what's going to happen. You have an expectation for yourself, but the fear of not meeting that expectation is what causes the nerves, at least for me. So having that expectation, like it's important, I think that everyone gets nervous and having that expectation can just like, help you go through it. And I just tell myself that when I'm like in the middle, in the zone going forward, I'm just like, you train harder than the guy next to you. Like, you're in the best place that you can be. Just go forward and just do you.
It's wise. It's well put. So let's 1 week out, like I said, if you can put in perspective for me what it means to you to be competing at the ADCC World Championships, what it would mean to medal, what it would mean to win this tournament for you.
Oh, it would mean so much. Like, honestly, in a way, my whole life would change. I think that everyone in the sport or everyone in that division, their goal is to win ADCC, at least for those that haven't won it yet. Like that's what they have to do. Like by the time their career is over, for Mika Galval, Kay Bertolo, like all these guys, they got to win ADCC. That's what makes their career. That's what separates like the greats from the guys that were good, but they're not like the greats. And especially at an event like this, where it's the biggest of all time, potentially the most stacked division of all time.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think ADCC, like I was talking about, I think that it's like everyone's like goal. By the end of their career, they have to win ADCC. And that is what kind of it is for me. Ever since I was a kid, like that was my goal and my dream. Okay, I got to get to ADCC and I got to win ADCC. And especially doing that at such a young age, like if I was able to win ADCC this time, like I've been training and planning to do, then it would just completely catapult my career in a direction that would be just way better than if I won it like 10 years from now or something, because I have the ability to compete in ADCC for years, but like losing ADCC over and over and over again and finally winning later, although that's a great story and a great redemption story, if you can win it at such a young age, it just catapults like your life in a direction with a ton of momentum. I'd be able to like work on, like right now I'm working on starting like my own business. And that would just like help catapult that in another direction, just help speed up the whole process of life and help me just continue to be the best version of myself possible, not only with jiu-jitsu, but other areas too. Give me a lot of potential for opportunity for seminars, for even bigger sponsors, or like, whatever that looks like. And I think like winning ADCC would do that for everybody. So that's like everyone's goal going into it. They want to win ADCC because they know it's going to be life-changing, especially this one. There's going to be, 13,000 people live, probably double that watching online. It's going to be insane. Biggest ADCC to date and the most stacked division to date. So it's winning ADCC, especially this time, would be life-changing for anyone, especially myself, because I'm only 21.
The first time I interviewed you, you told me that you kind of have a memory of being like 8 years old and seeing ADCC on a TV and thinking, I want to compete in that someday. Has that like completely sunken in yet? Has that hit you? It's like, this is where I started, and now I'm here finally.
Yeah, totally. Especially after the last trials, when I won the trials, that was like the next 3 months were just like super surreal. It was like I was living in a dream in a way, because like I expected to get to ADCC, but it's just like when it actually happens, it's just something that I've worked so hard for so long. You know, like we had talked before, 8 years old, wanting to go to ADCC one day, training from that moment till now. It's a long time, especially for one dream. And the fact that I had like multiple attempts and had failed at those attempts multiple times, like made it just so much more sweet, and so much like almost like the feeling of it not being real when it was actually there, because it's like something that exists in your brain of what like will happen in the future. Eventually you'll get there, eventually. And then like to change your mindset into thinking, okay, now it's now, like I've made it there, like now I'm there, now what's like now adapting that next goal. It's just really like a cool feeling, a surreal feeling.
Yeah, I could only imagine. So let's talk about the actual division a little bit. I feel like the talk on the internet, on these streets, so to speak, is that 77 kilograms is kind of the consensus, most exciting, everybody kind of the fan favorite division.
Mhm.
First of all, do you agree with that? Second of all, why do you think people see that division, your division, is so exciting?
I think 77 is great because it has a good balance between people that are like athletic, flexible, good cardio, fast, strong. But then, like on the technical side of things, you have guard players, leg lockers, wrestlers, back takers, like you have it all. And I think that's what kind of makes it super exciting. The fact that there's not just one variable, like in the 99 and up division, you mostly see guys just standing and collar tying each other over and over again. Now you have, you know, the new generation. You guys got Gordon Ryan in there that does a little bit more than that, with and Victor Hugo, who plays guard, and you have more of it now. But like that's kind of, in a way, 77's ahead of that division, because like 77 has had the variety of techniques for decades now, where like 99 and up is just now getting there. So it's like the evolution process of the division, I think, is just like that's what makes it so exciting, because there's just so many variables and you just don't know what to expect. As far as the athletes go, it also has just some of the most fan favorite athletes in the sport. You got guys like the Rotolo brothers, or I guess one of the Rotolo brothers. You got Mika Galval. You got like all these guys that are just like fan favorites. You got the returning two-time champ. It's just a really cool division. It was always my favorite division growing up, and I didn't even know that I'd wind up ending up in 77. I didn't know if I was going to be bigger or smaller, but it was just like the division that I loved watching. And I would watch all of the 77 and 66 were like my favorite divisions to watch. And I think that's just kind of the general um, like outlook from everyone else in the sport. They just love those divisions just because they're so fan friendly.
Yeah, more action. I call that, you said the 99 plus, just tons of heavy collar ties. I like to call that guys pushing. When I just kind of zone out,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, now it's just turned into a match where it's just guys pushing, no wrestling. It just feels like they're just hand fighting, which I get. Like, it's not, they're doing what they're doing, but man, 77, like you said, 77, 66 is always just so fun, so fast.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of the 99 and up division, because especially lately, I've put a lot of time into like trying to figure out actually how to wrestle, and not just like, do like jiu-jitsu wrestling.
Mhm.
And it the more you watch those divisions, you just know how they kind of don't really know how to wrestle. Like they know how to, like taking them down is probably super hard, and keeping them from taking you down eventually is probably super hard too. But they don't like they don't wrestle in a way that like the like actual wrestlers wrestle. They're not like putting forward pressure on each other constantly, and like throwing attacks constantly. A lot of it's like in a way a waiting game, and you don't see that at all at 77. Even the guys that don't really know how to wrestle at 77 are still like taking shots and like circling out of bounds and back into the center and putting forward pressure. And I think that's what makes that more exciting too.
Yeah, for sure. How would you're a guy who I think kind of doesn't have a super obvious like style of jujitsu, right? You have sometimes it's like he's a leg locker, half guard, wrestling, to that what you were just speaking about. If you had to define your style as a grappler, what would you say?
Um, I don't know. I Yeah, when I was a kid, I watched a lot of Roger Gracie, and I loved Roger because he was so well-rounded and used a lot of basics. Um, and he was just super efficient, had efficient jiu-jitsu. And that's just what I've always tried to replicate. Of course, we have now completely two different styles now that I'm kind of grown into my jiu-jitsu. In comparison to his, it's like two different styles, but we also have like two different body types. So it'd be really hard for me to replicate Roger's style. But I just always try to take the most efficient approach to jiu-jitsu. So like, yeah, I'm not going to try to like leg lock this dude that's like an expert leg locker. I'm not gonna try to wrestle a guy that's an expert wrestler. You know, I want to be well-rounded enough to where I can like exploit their weaknesses. So that means like having to be good enough in each area and be able to play strategy. So for example, if someone was like not a good guard player, then I can like sweep them and, you know, out wrestle them and maybe go for leg locks. And then if someone's a really good wrestler, then I can pull guard and, you know, sub them for my guard. I have like the ability to kind of change it up. And that's something that I've always tried to accomplish in my jiu-jitsu, is make it very well-rounded. And I think that's also what like excites me, is the fact, like, I love watching Gary Tonin, and I have for a long time. And he's one of those guys that doesn't really have a style. Like, he just like flying leg locks, flying guillotines, double legs, blast doubles, guard passes. Like, he's just all over the place. And that really helps being fan friendly. And I think that's something that like more and more athletes are starting to realize, that like you can be the best and the best, but if you're boring, then no one wants to watch you and no one's going to remember your name. Like, I'm not going to mention names, but I can mention several ADCC champions from last ADCC that no one cares about in today's date. And it's not because those people aren't good. They won what, like, at least today's day, they won the hardest ADCC ever. This probably will be one of the hardest now, but that was like the hardest ADCC ever. But no one really even cares about them. And it's not because they're not good. They won the division, just the way they win and the way they fight. My coach always tries to tell me, or he has always told me, that it's not like who you beat or what you win. It's how you beat them and how you win. For example, Romulo Bahal, I bet you everyone remembers at the Worlds when he like got his foot broken and like in half of that toe hold, but then he still lost the match. But everyone remembers Romulo for that. Then there's plenty of matches that are that same way. Oh, remember that match where those two guys were just all over the place at ADCC in 2019 in the 77 kilogram division? Oh yeah, that was Hanato and Gary Tonin. You know, neither one of them won the division, but everyone remembers their match. And that's how you make a name for yourself. You become spectator friendly, and being well-rounded really helps with that.
Man, you got me excited for ADCC now.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions for you right now. Before I let you go though, like, do you have any sponsors you want to shout out? Any social media? Where can we follow you? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, check me out on Tackett_jiu-jitsu on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel also. It's just my full name, William Tackett. I haven't been uploading too many videos on YouTube lately, but it's because I put so much time into my ADCC camp. I just don't have a lot of time to edit and record videos. But right after ADCC, expect to see more videos uploaded on YouTube. You can catch me on Instagram. My sponsor is Level Black. Their Instagram is Level X Black. Great brand, great gear. They do a lot of great things for the athletes. They help us out tremendously. And a lot of the gear sales go straight back to the athletes. So if you guys want to support the athletes, support that brand. It's a great brand. And then if you're ever in town, stop by Brazilian Fight Factory. Anyone listening, I think you guys would love training with us. Even if you don't, it's just a cool experience just because it's hard training, you know, but you guys will love it. At least you'll learn a few moves.
Awesome, man. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I cannot freaking wait to see you compete. I'm sure you're excited. Very much looking forward to it. Thanks again, man.
Thank you so much.